morning, good evening, and good afternoon, and welcome to our podcast match preview of Accrington Stanley versus Rochdale. My name is Phil Kennedy, and I'm joined by Tony Robinson. As for this week's Derby game, we've decided that an article wasn't quite enough, and we needed to do an actual virtual preview podcast. What is a virtual preview podcast? Well, what we're going to do is Tony is going to go down in the format of one of my regular Accrington Stanley match preview articles. We're going to give the answers, and then it's also going to give a little bit of an opportunity for Tony to add in some of his thoughts as well. So, it's going to give you more because you're going to get not just me, but you're going to get Tony too. And we all know that Tony is the brains behind the operation. I'm just, the American guy here trying to talk about football. Tony is the guy that grew up on Stanley Street. Thank you for joining me tonight, Tony.
Well, what can I say after that introduction? Nice to be with you, of course, Phil, and looking forward to talking about the match for Rochdale at the WHAM Stadium tomorrow.
Absolutely. And as we know, the nickname for Rochdale, I always thought it was kind of funny that Rochdale is pronounced Rochdale, but then they call themselves the Rock.
Yeah, and I've seen it where they go by the Dale, and it's just it's a different nickname than you would expect. They don't have sort of a set nickname that I know of, anyway.
Yeah, well, on Twitter they're officially Dale, and on the logo it does say the Dale, but then I also see places where it says the Rock, and that got me thinking. I wonder what the Rock is cooking. And according to Google, it turns out that the Rock is cooking the following: black pudding, Eccles cake, Manchester tart, Patsy barm, parched peas, rag pudding, Vitmo, and this is my favorite, Uncle Joe's mint balls. Tony, you're going to have to tell me about some of these, since I know that you grew up in the greater Manchester area, as they
well, some of those ring a bell, but I'm not going to touch Uncle Joe's mint balls anyway. I'll leave that one well alone. But the black pudding, that's a delicacy, and it's something that I love when I go back. So, there's and the Manchester tart's good. Eccles cakes are my mum used to make those, and they're really delicious. So, but a couple of those things I'm not too familiar with. They might be just more local to Rochdale than to East Lancs. But let's stay away from Uncle Joe's mint balls.
Well, one thing I wanted to ask you is parched peas. Is that the same thing as mushy peas, or is that a completely different? Do we have to add a third choice to rapid fire?
I'm gonna have to, as you say, down south of the border. I'm gonna have to plead the fifth on that. I don't really know. That's not a term that I'm familiar with. Whether it's something along the line of mushy peas, but maybe a Rochdale supporter or somebody from the area could let us know when they've heard this podcast.
Or we have our highly paid research department look into that.
I think they're off tonight, but anyway, we'll have to get them next time they're in the office.
Well, let's move on to the match. And as I may have shockingly predicted in the match preview, for the first time all season, I did predict a Stanley loss. And I'm going to say that this goes back to it was actually the second match that I ever watched on iFollow of Stanley was against Rochdale, and that was a loss. And I've watched everyone since, and they've all been losses. And I've just never seen Stanley beat Rochdale before, so it's just one of those things where it seems like they have our number.
Well, what do you see in Rochdale as far as the team and the players that we should look out for and a formation. What do you expect to see from Rochdale?
Well, I mean, they won their last match against Fleetwood Town. And you generally think that when you have a big win like that you're going to stay pretty close to the same lineup. They played a 4-5-1 formation, which means that they had 4 along the back line, 5 midfielders, and then just the one striker up front. It was Jake Beasley who started up front for them. And then it was Fabio Tavares who came in late, as we mentioned in the other preview episode. He came into the 85th minute. He scored the winning goal in the 90th minute. So it may be interesting to see if we see Tavares go into the starting lineup, because so far, Beasley, he just hasn't been effective in 2 starts. He doesn't have any goals yet so far this season. He only has 5 shots and 1 on target in those 2 starts. So, I mean, if you're playing a single striker and you're getting only 2.5 shots a game and only half a shot on target per game, that's just not getting the job done. So Beasley might be the one guy I see out of the starting lineup, and possibly the goal scorer Tavares coming in to replace him.
Before we go into the lead story, which I think in this case we could have a lead story for both Stanley and for Rochdale, have you been able to research like how many the all-time meetings between Stanley and Rochdale and how that stands?
Well, Tony, it's excellent that you asked that, because that was exactly where I was going at. It hasn't been good for Stanley. This is going to be the 17th all-time meeting between the two. In the previous 16, Rochdale has won 13. Stanley has won 2. There has been 1 draw. That draw was the first time they ever met back in League Two, which was on 26 August 2006. The other 2 Stanley meetings were on 24 October 2009, a 1-2 Stanley win at Rochdale, and then on 26 February 2013, an 0-3 Stanley win at Rochdale. So, in fact, Accrington Stanley has never beaten Rochdale at the WHAM Stadium. They've lost their last 6 in a row. They lost a 1-2 loss on New Year's Day was what their last meeting was. So it's just been 7 meetings. In the last 7 meetings, Stanley has scored 1 or 0 goals. I mean, the only saving grace I see is, like we talked about in the preview, that Ian Henderson and Callum Camps are not on the roster. And certainly those were guys that gave Stanley fits, but it just seems like it doesn't matter who suits up for Rochdale. I mean, they could put me and you in the 11 and still beat Stanley, it seems like.
Well, I think the history is certainly stacked against Stanley by what you just said there. But before we get into the formations and how the history has an effect on the betting line,
Tony, before we go into the lead story, I do want to just mention real quick the game officials. The referee for tomorrow's match against Rochdale is Scott Oldham. The assistants are Richard Bartlett and Richard Woodward, and the 4th official is Alan Clayton. And as we all know, Alan Clayton is probably in for an earful from John Coleman tomorrow.
Well, the 4th official is always gets it from either John or generally more so these days Jimmy. But I'm sure Rochdale will be in good form as well on the 4th official if things don't go their way. But as I was saying, there's a couple of signings. Rochdale has just brought in a left back by the name of Bola from Arsenal. And I'm wondering, do you feel that they brought that in to help tighten up their defense?
Well, yeah. I mean, anytime you have a lone player come in, it's kind of a wild card, because you have to be worrying about, like we've talked about with some of the Accrington players, how much game experience does the guy have playing for 3 points. For instance, Accrington had John Russell come in last week. He came over from Chelsea, which is another London club like Arsenal, obviously. And, they didn't have him in the starting lineup the first week. They brought him in at the bench. So I think that we're more likely to see a substitute appearance than a start out of him.
Also on the Stanley side of the ball, they've brought in 2 more players today. A goalkeeper from Chelsea by the name of Nathan Baxter on a season-long loan. And a signing that seems to be exciting a few people, a center back by the name of Michael Nottingham, a 6'4" center back, age 31. He's come over from Blackpool on a 3-year deal. Do you see any immediate impact with those 2 players starting, or do you see them more sitting out this weekend, especially the keeper? And maybe
I think that Toby Savin is the starting keeper. What we're looking at is Accrington wouldn't have given Savin a 3-year contract, in my opinion, if they didn't see him at the starter. I think that the lone player for right now, he's going to get some game time like in the EFL trophy and things like that. I think he's really just there because Liam Isherwood, he's just a guy that really didn't have any experience whatsoever. So we needed to have somebody else in there if Savin had an injury or something. And I don't think Chelsea loans us players to not have them play per se. So like I said, I think you will see him in an EFL trophy, maybe an FA Cup, things like that. But I just don't think that Accrington's going to give 3 years to Savin unless they see him as a long-term starter. Speaking of 3-year contracts, Michael Nottingham, don't call him Knots. It's Nottingham. He signed a 3-year deal. He's a guy, he comes over from Blackpool. He's a guy with League One experience. I think he might be the kind of guy that you can sign and stick him in the starting lineup the next day.
What do you see now? That leads on to the formation that we've been looking at for Stanley. They've tended to go with a 3-5-2. How do you see the system playing out tomorrow? Will it be the same? And do you see Nottingham getting in starting or just coming off the bench?
Well, I mean, it's tough to say because, let me start with the formation. I think that it's pretty set in stone that John Coleman has played a 3-5-2 this season. I think he would have wavered from it by now if he was going to. I think that's what they're committed to. I think he's another player that comes in and fits into that system. And I really... and this is not to take away from Harvey Rogers, who's played very well. I think that he would probably be the player that would be replaced by Nottingham in the starting lineup. The other thing that you have to look at, though, is that John Russell, I think he showed enough that we might see him into the starting lineup. And, of course, the big thing that we saw last week was Matt Butcher excelling, moving into that attacking number 10 role. I think we definitely see him there. And I think with Butcher, Uwakwe, and Pritchard as our 3 attacking midfielders, that we have the ability to get the ball forward now from the midfield. And they were really going to be looking at Colby Bishop and Cassidy to produce. Bishop, he got that tying goal in the EFL Trophy game this week against Blackpool. Hopefully that will light a fire under him. I think he's getting his legs under him finally. So I think that we might see Colby Bishop get on the board tomorrow.
Okay, and that leads into the betting line, the gambling analysis. What have you got in words of wisdom as far as regards to the match?
Well, I don't know if you can really call them words of wisdom recently. I've been on a little bit of a poor run. I think that the important thing that I like to look at is remember back at the episode that we recorded on Monday, we looked at this line and Stanley was at a minus 106. They were favored. They're still at minus 106. So that means the line hasn't moved at all. So that tells me that there's not any excessive action going on one side or the other. Rochdale's line is at plus 285, which is still about 3-1. The draw line is at plus 245. So basically, what we're looking at is Rochdale's payout to win is a little bit less than it was on Monday. I think they were at like plus 325. The draw line has actually come up a little bit, where that was, I think it was like plus 225 on Monday. It's at 245 now. What that tells me is that there's a few people betting on Rochdale to get the upset. I think that we don't really see a whole lot, though, because the line hasn't moved. So I don't think that the betting line says a whole lot, other than that there's a few people out there that might be favoring what I said on the first show and betting on the Rock a little bit.
After going through the analysis there, and we talked about this on the previous recording, where you had predicted a Rochdale away win. What's your game predictions at this point now? Have you rethought it, or are you still in the same vein of mind, or what's your thoughts on the prediction?
I mean, it's really hard for me to go back on what I said in the first episode. Manager Brian Barry Murphy, he obviously knows how to beat Accrington Stanley. Have you ever noticed that Brian Barry Murphy kind of sounds like should be a movie director instead of a coach?
He could be. People with three names are either movie directors or serial killers, so let's go with the movie director.
A new film from director Brian Barry Murphy, Manor Farm, which is actually the name of Rochdale's training ground.
Well, we could call it Disaster at WHAM Stadium, because I'm predicting Stanley win. But anyway, we're waiting to hear what your score line is.
Well, I'm going to stick with the 2-1 Rochdale. I do think Stanley will get on the board, and I hope that I'm wrong. I really, really hope that I'm wrong. But I mean, so far, Rochdale just gets the best of Stanley, and I'm one of those people when, and this kind of goes back to gambling. Do you notice that whenever a team goes on a long winning streak, that everybody starts picking, oh, this is going to be the game they lose, or this is going to be the game they lose?
Right.
Well, the smart money is actually, if a team is on a long winning streak, to keep betting on them until they lose. Because, yeah, you look a lot smarter if you happen to be the one that picks it right. Most of the time, if a team's won 10 games in a row, it's because they're in good form. And there's probably a better chance they're going to win a few more before they do drop one. Now, this is a little bit different because it's over a number of seasons, but I'm just the kind of guy that if a team has beaten another team 6 games in a row at 13 out of 16 historically, then Stanley's just got to prove to me that they can beat these guys.
Well, I respect your prediction, and not that I agree with it, and I'm going to tell you why. Rochdale have only won one match. They've drawn 1, lost 2. They've only scored 3 goals. They've given up 6. The 2 of the 3 goals that they've scored have come in the 90th minute or plus. One was to get the winner, and the other one was a consolation goal against Swindon. They don't play over 50% possession in any of the matches so far. So I look for Stanley to take the game to Rochdale. I think if Stanley can get up by a couple of goals, going late into the second half, I can see them seeing it through. Yeah, I'm still going to go. I'm going to go with a 3-1 prediction, but for Stanley win. And I just think the stats so far this season, and I'm putting history out the window. I think the stats so far this season lean me towards a Stanley win.
I get what you're saying, Tony, and I hope you're right. I just think that this is a true derby, and in a true derby, you throw the stats out the window. And in the National Football League, you know how when two teams from the same conference play each other, you get some wild results sometimes, like when the Dallas Cowboys play the New York Giants. It's always going to be a good game, regardless of the records of the teams coming in, just because they play each other twice a season, and there's all the history. And I just think Stanley, they don't really have a lot of rivals because they've shot up through the league so quickly over the past 20 years. But Rochdale, they're that one team that's right down the road from Stanley. They've been in either League Two or League One with them for a majority of the past 15 years or so. And you can just throw all the stats out the window. And, so far, like I said, Rochdale has just had our number.
Well, I think there's three options, isn't there? And hopefully the option I'm taking is the right one. And the other option is a draw, which I don't see this match as a draw, but maybe without any fans in the WHAM Stadium, maybe that's going to be the difference, and Stanley will pull this one out. But I feel confident for this one, Phil, and let's hope that your prediction in this one, my friend, is wrong.
Well, I hope so too, and I do just want to give you one other kind of interesting note to go back to the whole Brian Barry Murphy knows how to beat Stanley thing. He's been the manager of Rochdale for the last 2 seasons. He actually played for them since 2010. So, I mean, he's been with Rochdale since 2010. Since 2010, Rochdale has only lost to Stanley once. So what you're looking at is 9 times Brian Barry Murphy, either as a player or a manager, has faced Stanley. 8 of those times he's walked away with 3 points. And that's...
And an interesting fact is that he actually played for John Coleman when Coleman was managing Rochdale for that short period of time.
That's an excellent point. He must have Xerox the playbook or something.
Well, back then it was Stanley was basically known for their 4-4-2, so it's a different system, different personnel, and let's see. It should be an entertaining match, and I think there'll be some goals in it. And I just don't see a draw. So let's hope for a good match and a positive result for Stanley.
I look forward to it. And this always is a fun match because Rochdale, even though they're a rival, they're a friendly rival. I consider them. They're one of those small clubs that, you want to see good things for when they're not playing against Stanley. And I do just need to give a shout out to our friend Andrew Bolte in New Mexico, who is a New Mexico United and Rochdale supporter. And I was just chatting with Darren and Tony earlier today about, imagine 30 years ago, telling somebody in Accrington, oh yeah, 30 years from now, 2 guys in the southwestern United States are going to be bantering about Accrington Stanley and Rochdale. I don't think anybody to believe that.
No, you could have put a lot of money down on that one and got good odds for that one. But yeah, it's this interesting how things have developed and how English football has developed a following at all levels really now in North America, and I think it's just great for the game in general.
As they say across the pond, brilliant. It's just brilliant.
Yes, brilliant. Yes.
So Tony, this has been a lot of fun. Did you have any parting thoughts before we wrap up here?
No, I just think I'm looking forward to a good match tomorrow, and I'm hoping that we can get off to and score the first goal and kick off then, because if they do get the first goal, I think that's going to give a lot of confidence to Stanley, and I think they'll push on for the win.
I think that's absolutely the key, because anytime I know that they say history doesn't matter, but some of these guys like Mark Hughes and Seamus Keneally, for example, they've been on the losing end to enough of these Rochdale matches that it's going to be something where you go out on the field and you're not going to have forgotten that, hey, these guys have beaten us a bunch of times in a row. And getting that first goal and getting that confidence is a huge part of it. And it's like when they talk about when two fighters go into a boxing match that, sometimes it's just the fighter that's more confident that ends up winning. And that's the thing, is that Stanley really needs to throw that first punch, if you will, and make sure that they're the confident side. And what they don't want to get dragged into is something where it's 0-0 in the 88th minute, because as you mentioned, Rochdale is getting those late goals, and I imagine they're just going to be one of those teams that when it gets to about the 85-minute mark, they're going to start dumping in crosses from 40 yards out and bring in their big center halves and things like that. So they do need to get ahead early and preferably often.
Yeah, I think if they Stanley gets the first goal, then history goes out the window, and the confidence will be there, and they can push on.
Well, I hope that you're right, and I hope that's what happens, Tony. And until tomorrow morning, on Stanley On.
On Stanley On. Cheers, Phil.
Cheers, Tony.